All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Shema, Shabbat, Shema, Kakadash, double honor to the apostle, and it is a great millstone. Shalom to all that I came out to pushing the word in sincerity and truth. And I want to do this lesson on how we were sold to the nations, pursuant to the book of Baruch. But I want to go through this, and we all know what people that was sold to the nations, you blacks as well as you Latinos and Native Americans. You collectively were put on plantations, beat, robbed, stripped of your heritage, worked through manual and forced labor without any type of pay. All right, that's the term slavery. All right, and you had even certain, because you have indentured servants, you have serfs, you have slaves, you have these different employees, which they're all different, which it all does go into the being at the bottom of the barrel work, but employee is a more corporate term, so to speak. As your employee, you have you work for a minimum wage, starting off at minimum wage on up. Then you might be on payroll. Then you have federal and state benefits, so to speak. But when you're a slave, your master doesn't have to give you shit. All right. It was a lot of inhumane practices that took place, a lot of what you have buck breaking. And Lord willing, I might start doing more lessons on slavery, because never forget, and I want Lord willing through the Spirit maybe do a set, different lessons on that. Never forget slavery. Never forget these different dates of these historical events that took place dealing with you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But I want to go into a couple of these bullet points. And what's interesting about this, number one, is they were saying that the Spanish merchant Juan de Cordoba is believed to have first captured Africans to the Americas in 1502. Right. So, of course, we are familiar with 1611. But it was believed that actual African Americans were actually captured and transported in the early 1500s. But I want to go to this other point. Prior to 1518, the Spanish monarchy refused to allow slaves to be transported directly from the continent of Africa because of a fear they would introduce non-Christian religious practices to native populations in America. So Esau, which Lord, I'm going to go ahead and just put this on copy, send it out to brothers. But Esau knew that the so-called Africans over there in West Africa, and he knew we was Israelites, all right? They had you had Fort Judah, you had Fort Benjamin, you had the Fort Levi, which was basically centers and hubs that the Israelites lived in. They knew through their ceremonial customs, through the cloth, the regalia that they were used to wear, their diet, that they were Israelites, as well as the Native Americans. You have a history of the Native American Indians by James Adair, as well as various other books where he goes into details on Native American practices that were extremely similar to the Israelites. And Esau, he did not want so-called African Americans, which were not Africans, because Africa, is a continent. You cannot be a continent. See, in today's speech, that's why the whole world is bugged out. You got people calling themselves after continent. The Lord established nations, and other nations took down other nations. You have the continent of Africa, which consists of over 50 countries, man. All right, and within those countries, you have people. All right, and people are represent the nations. All right, and that's why it tells you also in Psalms, the 105th chapter, how we were sojourners in the land of Ham. So we would live in the land of Ham, which that's the actual name for Africa within the scriptures, is the land of Ham. That changed in August 18th, 1518, when King Charles V granted a charter to Lorenzo de Goroved to transport 4,000 slaves directly from Africa to the Spanish American colonies. The Spanish king circumvented the law established by his grandparents by allowing slaves to be converted to Christianity during the voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. Right. And when you have converts, the word convert means to basically turn to truth, with truth. Con is with, and virtue. Vert is the truth. But Esau wouldn't teach you what they would do, they would beat you down and they would put the image of Christianity within your face, which came in the image of Cesare Borgia. That's why in all over South America, Central America, you have Cesare Borgia and Caesar, those Jesus Christ pictures, the Jesus Christ idols, all these different Jesus Christ merchandise. That's a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry. Lord, we're not gonna look that up. How much the Jesus images made over time, and might find a couple of results. But that's why you native, as well as you natives, and a lot of you blacks are Christians, all right. And you'll have white Jesus all throughout your house. You'll go to these churches and you'll learn that plantation Christianity, because what the so-called white man so-called converted you, which really he put you down by the force of the sword and made you bow down unto his religion, just like they did with Islam as well as other religions. All right. Esau is a get down and lay down type of person. But number 4, because of inadequate records, the number of people taken from Africa through enslavement remains unknown. Based on shipping records, and you have these assholes that's trying to say that slave ships never exist. You actually have shipping records, man. Based on and the people that were the primary shippers of that actually owned those slave ships were so-called Jews. All right, that's why it tells you that in Joel, how we were sold. All right, they sold a man for a harlot, and for wine that they might drink. But continuing on, based on shipping records, historians estimate that between 9 million and 11 million people were taken out of Africa by European slave traders and delivered alive on the other side of the Atlantic. An untold number, however, died resisting capture in the slave raids. Yeah, a lot of them died. A lot of them got thrown off of the ships. You see, during the forced march to the coastal regions and slave forts, a lot of them got smuggled, to try to deduct costs. It's just like Esau does other things. Esau's a natural smuggler, all right, natural thief. In slave forts while awaiting transport and as they traveled across the ocean. The lowest number for the total loss of life, and this is the lowest number, is estimated to be around 20 million people. So that 20 million calculated by that 11 million that was taken, that's 31 million alone. A total that is more than all of the people currently living in New York State. And that's the number of lost life. The amount in New York State, and you got a lot of these Negroes that just don't want to acknowledge this, that a whole state of people just got lost. And who were they? That was your forefathers, your uncles, your aunties, all right? People of close kin. And you don't think this white man should pay, and they're doing the same thing now? A lot of people seen these protests that took place, and not a white man, a couple of individuals got shot. But if it was blacks and Latinos, and I've heard people say that personally, from an unbiased perspective, not even being Israelites, going to a restaurant, because everybody and their mama was watching that. They were saying if that was blacks and Latinos, it'd be blood all over the floor. Even though Michael Rappaport said that. All right. But what a lot of people don't understand, why we're in the conditions we're in, is because of biblical prophecy. Baruch 4:6, ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction. Yeah, and we got totally beat down, but it wasn't to kill us off as a whole people. Because within those nations, it still remained the elect. It tells you also within the law how ye and your king, were going to slavery. So it was righteous men that actually went in slavery. A lot of them died resisting, the so-called slave master. But a lot of them, had to actually get took into slavery, and have to go through that. That's why Scripture speaks about the virgins falling asleep. Speaks about the falling away. We're continuing on. For ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils and not to the Most High. Right. Because when we was on the in West Africa, we wasn't, fully, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Just like even in today's time, you have all kind of different religions. Us as Israelites practicing the ways of the Most High. Everybody doesn't do that. Everybody doesn't keep the Passover. Everybody doesn't keep the Pentecost and keep the Hanukkah, Purim, all these different celebratory days. A lot of these jakes are into straight up Satanism, drug use, and they was doing the same thing in Africa. They would take these hallucinogenics. They would go to the different parts of Africa, whether it was North Africa, South Africa, where those Africans were residing, and they would practice with them. Stretching the lip, stretching the neck, looking like straight up devils, man. That's why it says that, by sacrificing unto devils, and they worshipped a lot of devils. A lot of those Hamites actually worship the devil. That's why you see they'll have a whole plate within their mouth, the bottom of their lip extending, stretching their necks, piercing the flesh, tearing the flesh in the name of honoring God. And a lot of those were jakes too, man. Says, ye have forgotten the everlasting power that brought you up, and ye have grieved Jerusalem that nourished you. Right, because the Lord desired for us to be upright. As it is written, the Lord made man upright, but they sought out many inventions. For when she saw the wrath of the Most High coming upon you, she said, hearken or listen, O ye that dwell about Zion. The Most High brought upon me the great mourning. For I saw the captivity of my sons and daughters, which the everlasting brought upon them. And who are the sons and daughters of the captivity? You blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, the ones that had to endure the transatlantic slave trade. All right, they had the Arab slave trade, all these different slave trades that took place, and you jakes were, cash. You were a prize commodity. That's why it tells you. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to it. In Joel, when you were here in the Americas as well as Jamaica and other places, you were chopping sugar cane, you were picking cotton, chopping lumber, doing servile work. That's where you have the term cash crops, where you have actual slaves that would produce crops, and then you would be the ox that was being muzzled and not even fed. The scripture says, muzzle not the ox that tread up the corn. You would tread, and you would actually, work in these different fields, and you would not even get a percentage of the increase. Going back to the curses of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, how you shall, basically put in work. Roughly paraphrasing, you shall sow, but you shall bring in little. You're only getting a small percentage of the labor that you actually put out. All right. So this is Joel 3 and 6. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start at verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot. Right, a lot of the jakes was being sold, for women, in exchange for prostitution, because harlots and those different women were being sex slaves too. So it's trading a slave for a slave, whether it was a slave for labor or a slave for pleasure, And a lot of the black women were actually harlots and sex slaves to the white men. And that's a pure fact. You can watch them on the slave movies. And that's why you got to watch these movies, man. You can't just be always, on the internet watching bullshit, You gotta look at the things that went on to us as a people. And so the girl for wine, you had the flagons of wine, big, rich wine that was extremely expensive, $1,000 bottle. They would sell our daughters for that substance, basically, that they might drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, which deals with the Hamites. And the Hamites, they helped basically put, Jake in slavery. And there's even documentaries that show that. It's individuals, I actually heard in a documentary, like, the Africans that were selling, the so-called Africans in Africa, they knew that they weren't the same people. And that's a fact. You're not going to naturally sell your people to the enemy. A man of a fairer skin, you selling your own people. They knew that those different, people there were actually Israelites. They were not of the same heritage. Whether they actually knew by the spirit, or they, of knowing the word, or they just seen their vibrations then resonate. And we went to war with a lot of those Hamites. So those African soldiers, that's why it says what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palatine, will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Because you have taken my silver and my gold, which that deals even with 70 AD, spoiling the Lord's treasury, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. Right, you had the menorah, you had all these different sanctified items, and Esau took them. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians. Right, and who are the modern day Grecians? Esau. All right, history started with the Greeks. That's where a lot of people go by. They go to these Greek universities, and it's mainly white people that are successful because they resonate with the spirit of the Greeks. That you might remove them far from their border, and that was from the west side of Africa. Took, like I said, you would be tossed to and fro like a like a ball into a far country. Slavery equals slavery. All these things equal slavery, and you can't avoid the facts, Esau. But guess what? The Lord is going to turn that recompense upon your own head. Lamentations, the 4th chapter says that. And Apostle R even read this verse, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it. All right. So the word is being spoken. The word of Yahweh Shema Shai is raising up that standard, and the ones that were brought here on slave ships, they're gonna, cargo slave ships, they're gonna be beamed out of here from spaceships, man. That's the glory of Yahweh Shema Shai. Hopefully, brother, edified. So I'm gonna get end by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Shema Shai, by Shema Kakodash, the bonus apostle, elders, great millstone. Shalom, Market.